Hello everyone! Here is our project for our virtual mini art for December. I thought it would be fun to do something kind of holiday oriented, or you could make this a winter project if you'd like. It was extremely fun to make. I've offered a couple of different size options, so you can kind of go as big or as small as you'd like. But this is the project and it should be kind of fun. Hopefully it'll get you into the holiday spirit or the winter spirit. Have fun everyone! Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So for this project, I have two different canvas size options for you. So on this one, I used the 5x7 canvas. So if you'd like, you're welcome to make one at this size too. It'll probably take you more than an hour if you choose this size, but if you're having fun and you think this would be a nice project to make a little bit bigger, feel free to choose this one. If you're interested in something a little bit smaller, I've also got the 4x4 inch canvas. And this is the one I'm going to work on today, so that way you'll get to see how it looks when it's a large project, how it looks when it's a small one. This looks really tiny. It's a 4x4, but you can actually fill it with a lot of color and make it come out really cute. So that's one I'll use, but when you arrive at the reference desk, you can let the person there know which size you'd like. I'll have both options available. I am going to use a couple of different brush sizes. I've got a few here. I actually have one more. There we go. So I've got sort of a range of sizes, and it'll sort of depend on what size canvas you've chosen and how thick you're making your books. So I would get a variety of brushes ready to go. You'll also need a ruler and a pencil. And then I have two different permanent markers. I've got just the regular fine point, and then I've got this ultra fine point. So you can use just one or the other if you want. I like to have both. That way I can make some different spines, make the spines look different with a little bit of variation. And of course you're going to want to have some water, some paper towels to dry your brushes off, and some paints. So I have listed in your instruction packets some of the color, or all of the colors that I used, but this is a great project to use whatever colors you have available. And of course you can use, if you're making a Christmassy theme, you can use Christmas colors. If you're doing winter theme, you could use more of the blues. So you can really make this however, whatever you'd like it to be, but I'll show you the ones I used. I started with a metallic color and I did my outside, the outside of the book's color. So this one here was a plum purple, and that's a metallic color. I've also got berry red, cameo pink, grape jam, green turquoise, Christmas green, cool blue, cobalt blue, and summer sky. And then last but not least, I've got a little bit of a gold color here. But feel free to use any colors that you like. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So you're going to need your ruler and your pencil. And with this size here, I like to make my books fill most of the canvas. And I usually kind of start right in the middle with my vertical lines. So that's kind of my starting point. I'm just going to keep going on either side with this design. Got some space at the top, space at the bottom. So at the bottom, I'd like everything to be kind of on the same level, all straight across. But then at the top, they can vary. You could do a variety of widths and heights. So you can see there's not exactly an exact science to this. It's kind of whatever you want to do. so there we go. So I've just kind of got my stacks going. Now what I'm going to do is right on the bottom first, I'm just going to add kind of a rounded base, just like a tiny bit rounded. And that's going to be about at the same level. There we go. Okay, and there we go. You could take a look if it looks a little uneven. Feel free to just add a little bit more and your paint will cover. And it doesn't have to be exactly all on the same level. It can have a little variation. There we go. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now, you're gonna go ahead and do the same thing at the top here, except these are gonna be all at different levels. So you're gonna kind of give a rounded shape, just a little bit. And there we go. All right, so what you're gonna wanna do before you get started, just take a look, make sure it's nice and even. All right, so I'm gonna just straighten this up a little bit before we continue. Okay. All right, there we are. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with painting on the outside of the books. That seems to work as a good starting point. I'm going to go for a medium-sized brush, I think. That seems like it'll work well for this. I'm going to take some of my plum purple. And I would recommend putting nice thin coats of paint on here. That way it dries fairly quickly. So I'm going to go back around in some of these little corners that are hard to get into. I'll go back through with a thinner brush. There we go. There we are. Okay. All right, so we've got that started. And this looks like I will probably want to put 2 coats of this color on here to get it nice and opaque. I'm going to use my thin brush now kind of get right into these little spots that were difficult to get into. Here we are. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is choose some colors for my spines. So what I did first was I looked up a whole bunch of Christmas books. I used some of my favorites and then used some other ones that I haven't read yet but would like to read to fill my bookshelf in. So I kind of based some of my colors on the actual colors of the books. So you can do it that way if you'd like, and then sort of pick from here which colors kind of work best. Or you could just kind of randomly go in and paint your spines and then decide from there which books you want to put where. So for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and put my put any color in here. I'm just going to do a variety of what looks nice. And I'm going to go ahead and use this medium-sized brush again. I find it easier to paint it from this perspective. I like to turn it and then paint it this way, then I kind of turn it around again. So that way you can get into all those nooks and crannies and give the books a real nice shape. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's see, you could start with whatever color you want. I'm just gonna start with this dark blue here. And I sort of jump around through my canvas. I'm gonna start with this one. Paint this one as well. So as you can see, I do a lot of spinning around of this canvas during this project. And feel free to change brushes too as you need. And And I'm going to do something similar to what I did with the small brush when I painted the background. So after I get all my base colors in here, I'll go back through with that small thin brush and just kind of refine the edges. But for now, I'm just getting some color in here, and chances are you'll need to do a couple of coats on this. So for time's sake, I probably won't put both coats on here, but I do recommend that. That's how I did this one. The 2 coats, that just kind of comes out as nice as it can. And for this project, you want to make sure your brushes are nice and dry. What can happen sometimes is after you rinse, water kind of gets stuck up in here, and when your brush is tilted like this, it sort of drips out a little bit. So just try to make sure your brush is really, really dry before you dip into the next color. Otherwise, it can like run right onto your painting and kind of mix things in a way that you don't want them to. Okay, gonna go for a bit of green. Now, if you find that your colors are bleeding together a little bit, what I do is I take a little brush, like a nice thin one, that's dry, nothing on it, and just go right along the edge. There we go, and you kind of just wipe any of those little blobs that sort of collect right along the sides. There we go. There we are. And once you kind of flatten those out, get rid of any blobs, you can kind of refine it afterwards. Okay, there we go. Now for this really thin book, I'm just gonna go for my nice thin brush. And then I'm gonna refine the edges. And now would be a good time too, after you kind of refine those edges, to see about putting in a second coat for your background. Usually takes a little more time on these thin books. There we go. So you want to make sure it's nice and straight, otherwise it really shows up. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna go right along this top edge and just touch up those book spines a little bit. Can also straighten out any lines that you need to. So this is a good step to spend a little time on, because this will really sharpen up the look of your books. You can sort of see it's starting to polish this up a little bit by refining those lines and those edges. You can also probably see that it definitely takes a little more time if you choose the 5x7. we go. Okay. Alrighty. Going to finish now that I've refined the edges on here. Just gonna fill the books in just a little bit more for some of those that I didn't get a full second coat on. That second coat really makes a nice difference. And the second coat goes on quick too. Alrighty, so there's that. And at any step two, feel free to just clean up those edges in that way that I explained with like the dry brush, and just kind of smooth it out right along those lines there. Alright, so now would be a great time to put that second coat in the background while we let the books dry. So with this metallic paint, that second coat covers up a lot of those brush strokes real nice and gives it like a nice matte look. Well, sort of. Matte meaning you can't see the brush stroke, so it's like flat, but it's definitely still metallic. There. So as we do this, I'll just talk a little bit about how we're going to do the writing on these books. It works best if the books are nice and dry. So if they feel a little bit wet, I would just wait. And I would also practice a little bit because it's a little hard to cover if since it is permanent marker. if you use it and you don't like the way that your writing came out, you can certainly try to cover it with the paint, but it doesn't work that well, especially for some colors. I noticed red doesn't work well to cover the permanent marker, and certainly like that light pink, that's really tricky. So I would recommend just practicing a little bit and get the feel of each type of pen and what it can do. And you can try a couple different types of writing. Like for example, I like to do a couple of the books in like a cursive. I like to do a couple in all caps. And you can do sort of a mix if you'd like, but I'd practice a couple of different styles first. And you also want to make sure that you've got a nice, fresh, new permanent marker. Otherwise, it can get, if it's dry, it doesn't come out too well. And it's kind of nice to get it all in one pass. All right, so what I'm going to do is, while we let this dry a little bit, I'm going to scoot this up here. And I'm just going to practice right on here. I can show you a couple of different looks. All right, so the first thing I'm going to try is with this fine point marker. And I'll show you some of what I did. So you could sort of take a look and see some of the different styles. And you can place things differently on the books too. You can write it all the way across. You could put a couple words kind of layered, but it's kind of up to you what you like. You can leave a little space for a couple of little details, like the holly berries or the crown. I also like to put a couple accents on the ends. It tends to work best to do the writing first, then go back and add your accents. That would be my recommendation. And that is where I brought the gold in. So that comes out as a kind of a pretty little accent. Okay, so, and feel free to use the books that I used, or you can certainly use some of your own favorites. So let's see. Winter Street is one that I really like, so I would practice that. I can just sort of help give you some practice, see what the writing looks like, kind of practice getting it all on one line. Practice a couple of those. I'm gonna switch over to something small. Let's do So just kind of get the feel of your pen. And this way too, you can check spelling and everything. Make sure you get all your spelling right. Okay. So mine is still a little bit wet, but you want to make sure that it's nice and dry. You can certainly put a fan on it and speed up that process. I'm just going to wave mine a little bit, kind of dry that off. And you can certainly look online for some lists of some different Christmas books, holiday books, Hanukkah books, winter books. You can get some different lists if you want, or you can put your favorites. Okay, so a lot of mine have actually dried off quite a bit just from fanning. you can choose which titles you want to put on which ones based on the length of the titles, and also on what font you want to use. All right. Let's see, I'm going to do... And sometimes too, right before I start, after you write on the paint, sometimes the marker feels a little bit funny. Test it out first. Okay. Whoops. Okay. Okay. So I cut it a little bit close. What's great is you can add a little green right onto that. So that's probably what I would do for that one. All right, so I've got that. Let's do... I like to kind of jump around and do a little bit of a mix of the two different widths of this marker. Okay, so that one was a little bit close too, so we can add a little bit right on the end of that. Let's see about... take a look, see kind of what it looks like. So it's shaping up. All right. When you're ready, you can put those finishing touches on. So you're going to want to grab one of your nice thin brushes to do some details. Now the first thing I'm going to do before I forget is add a little extra paint to these books where I need it. There we go. There we go. That's part of why I like to put the details on after, in case something like that happens. It's easy to add a little bit of the book if there's no detail on it. There we go. Okay. All right. Now, what I like to do is I like to, for the most part, use the colors I've already introduced and put those on the book spines. And then the only additional color I added was gold. All right. Just gonna put like a little holly berries here. It's a little hard, I think, to see through the camera. There we go. My favorite accents are just like a little curved line on either end of the book. Gold always looks pretty, I think, against these nice dark colors. So I do a lot of like little dots, little lines, nothing too fancy, just adding a little bit of color where there isn't any. And I like to add a little something to each book. The other thing you could do is sometimes I've seen these look really pretty if you leave a few of the books blank, like with no writing on it, and you could just do a design. That's also a fun option. Could also make little snowflakes. That comes out pretty cute with a nice thin brush. There we are. And there we have it. So you can put as much detail as you want or as little. You can add as many or as few books as you'd like. But it is a pretty fun project, especially if you have a list of holiday books that you really like. You can really personalize this craft. Also works well as a nice gift. If you know a reader, could certainly fill these in with books that they would enjoy. All right, so that is about it for today. I hope you all have fun making this project. If any questions pop up as you're working on this, please feel free to post them right below the video, or you can send me an email and I'll do my best to answer those as quickly as I can. All right, have fun everyone. I hope you enjoy.